But the big thing that affected storylines was CM Punk tearing his other tricep. That's why WrestleMania 40 is all over the place, because of an injury.
Well, that's a topic that I really, really wanted to talk about as well, because obviously when you're talking about MMA and you're talking about WWE, if there's a couple of really big things that have happened in both histories of it's CM Punk. We could talk for days about CM Punk in MMA and specifically the UFC, for days and days about it. But what I wanted to know as well, from a wrestling fan's perspective, obviously I have seen the viral clips of fans losing their fucking minds when he returned to WWE, and even so with AEW, a couple of years ago now, which is nuts that the time has passed like that. But from a wrestling fan's perspective, when he came back from the showing that he had in the UFC, what was it about him that people in the wrestling world still think? I know kayfabe isn't a thing anymore, and I know everyone knows that it's not real, but what was it about CM Punk where people think, yep, he can go immediately into the main event of WrestleMania against, this tyrannical Roman Reigns that hasn't been beaten for, hundreds of days or whatever it might be? What is the suspension of disbelief with what we know about CM Punk? What we know about CM Punk is that he can't fucking fight, but he can go into WWE as a 40-year-old man and beat whoever it might be at WrestleMania.
When was his UFC fight? 2016?
2016, 15? Yeah.
Right, so I guess that helps. It's been 6 years, whatever, 8 years. That definitely does. That definitely does help. Also, after those fights, he wasn't back in wrestling for 4 years or for 5. I think it's such a long gap. And then I think the other elements that come into it are absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah. From a pro wrestling perspective, we're talking basically 10 years since we'd seen him. So people are like, I don't care. I just want CM Punk to come back. But more importantly, it's a secret sauce. He's really, really, really good at speaking on a microphone. Yeah. So when he starts talking, he gets you all riled up and he gets you all ready. And probably because it does come from a real place, because it sounds so authentic, that's where you can suspend your disbelief. Because you just believe in what he's saying. Hey, man, when he fought in UFC, I bet on him to win because I heard what he was saying. I was like, oh, he's going to do really well. and he didn't. I think it's the same kind of vibe, right? He just knows, well, he's just very good at that aspect of the game, which is a massive part of fighting as well, be it boxing, MMA, whatever. Yeah. You got to talk people into the building. But I also do think there's a contingent of fans, and very sadly, maybe for a lot of people listening, I fall into it. I don't actually care. Forget about who he is as a person. But in terms of sort of how you approach life, I just love the fact that he went and did it. Yeah. Here's an opportunity. Sweet, I'll go and do it. You could get punched in the face for real. Yeah, so. And that, to me, almost, given how I watch wrestling, almost elevates him. Because look, if somebody offered me a celebrity boxing match, I'd probably take it and I'd get my ass whooped.
Yeah, well, I mean, he got paid $500,000 to do it as well.
Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't sound like that big a loss to me, given that I never really thought CM Punk was going to be the UFC champion. Yeah. Never really came onto my radar. Never thought he'd have a fight. But to use your celebrity to... I always look at things like this. When he's 75 years old, if he's blessed enough to live that long, he's going to look back and go, well, at least I did it. Yeah. As opposed to, oh, why didn't I do it? And I would rather be, as it was for a while, a little bit, well, probably quite majorly humiliated, maybe a little bit of a laughing stock, but be like, yeah, but I did it. Yeah. If someone said, pick a lane, I pick the lane where I did something, then I look like a moron, as opposed to just cower away and not do it. So I think it's that 50-50 kind of a thing. You've got people like me that respect him for doing it, and then he's really good at cutting I don't know whether you saw the promo he did after he got injured. No. Oh, my word. I would have... Simon Miller, will you stand in for me? I will stand in for you, CM Punk. It just gets you all... And this is also, again, going back to our earlier conversation, knowing the nooks and crannies about what did happen in AEW and how he was acting and stuff like that. Just throw it out the window. Yeah. I don't care about any of that kind of stuff. Let's go, Phil. Let's go.
Well, I suppose it's exactly the same with guys like Chael Sonnen, right? The fact that he has just consistently... I mean... don't get me wrong, Chael Sonnen is a terrific fighter as well and has accomplished some incredible things. But he's also been put in some fights that he absolutely shouldn't have been put in as well, because he talked his way to the top, because he basically promoted his way into a fight with John Jones, which is the most nuts thing ever.
Now, especially looking back, that's just
I know,
crazy.
it's nuts. It's nuts. And, he's talked his way into a lot of, I know it's Bellator, but he talked his way into like the heavyweight Grand Prix at Bellator. What the fuck was he doing fighting Fedor Emelianenko? I have no idea. But like the one thing I guess I do find I struggle to understand with it's just like, even though he is so good on the microphone, and I don't know, I wouldn't say I've watched a lot of wrestling in the past, but I haven't watched really any of the CM Punk stuff. I didn't watch the pipe bomb. I didn't watch his entry into the new ECW that WWE created, so I didn't see him coming up. I watched a couple of his Ring of Honor, matches and TNA back in the day. But as he's come up through and become the superstar, could you look at CM Punk and go, oh, this is a guy, even at 40 years old, puts on 5-star Dave Meltzer matches? Or is it literally it's more of a buy-in? So you'll watch that wrestling match because he's told you to watch it, and then by the time that you got there, I'm saying this, Simon, because I watched the Royal Rumble, and when I saw that it came down to CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and they had 10-15 minutes where it was just the two of them at the end there, CM Punk looked like he was ready to throw himself out of the Royal Rumble. He was gassed. The amount of time that they were spending just on the canvas, doing the whole kind of like, this is a hard fought battle and it could go to anyone. It's sort of, when I compare, and I know this is a stupid thing to say, and I know that like wrestling fans would punch me in the face for saying something like this, but like compared to like the back and forth action of someone like Bret Hart versus like Shawn Michaels, where it's moving at 100 miles an hour, or like Eddie Guerrero, or Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle in the Iron Man match and all that kind of stuff. When I watched that last 10 to 15 minutes, which, that's what it's the culmination. It's the climax of this incredible, prestigious Royal Rumble. And a lot of it was kind of slow paced headlocks and, we're going to just stay on the canvas. It's hard for me to go, okay, even if CM Punk had won the Royal Rumble, to go, okay, I can't wait for his match at WrestleMania because he's going to go all night and he's going to, he's going to be the showstopper.
I think you got to throw the caveat in. By that point, he had torn his tricep.
Yeah,
I really do think that. I really do think that would have affected things. Again, I don't want to say for sure because I can only go back a year and judge him on his AEW stuff.
Yeah,
but he did not look like that in AEW. Don't get me wrong; he's a 45-year-old man or whatever he is. He was a touch slower. But that's just that's just nature. You can't help that. But again, especially the matches he had with MJF. They had his dog collar match in AEW. I mean, that was one of my favorite matches of whatever year it was. It was either 2022 or 2023. I'm pretty sure it was 2022. So I will actually give him the benefit of the doubt there and imagine that if you've got a torn tricep, but this actually brings up another conversation, but it brings up another conversation. Maybe we need to start a culture where wrestlers just go, my arm is hanging off. Let's just stop all this. I have a real thing. Again, it's difficult to look at the grandiose nature of the Royal Rumble. But who knows if he made it worse by, I don't know. So I will say that. But I do admit, yes, the ending, put it like this, the ending made so much more sense to me when they said, oh, he tore his tricep. I was like, right, okay, I get it. But look, if you hadn't seen any of the AEW stuff.
Which I haven't.
It is actually, well, just even people at the Rumble, right? You are going to be a bit like, well, this is kind of, look, all I had to do was go on the internet, right? I saw Twitter.
Yeah.
And they don't just say, oh, he seemed a little bit out of breath. It's like, this is the worst. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
And they take it to the horrible nth level. So I think it actually is a question that needs to be answered within the WWE.
It's an odd one, isn't it? It's like the way I would compare it was if you have Picard. Yeah, it's Star Trek, and you have Jean-Luc Picard, and he's just given an incredible speech about how we're going to defend the Enterprise, and then they beam him down to have one-on-one combat with a alien species, and it is the worst fucking fight you've ever seen in your life. Wouldn't you just be like, oh, maybe the next time Picard gives one of these speeches, I'm not going to be into the... I don't know, that's a stupid thing to say, but...
But my first thing to Picard would be, why didn't you use your phaser, Picard?
Yeah, God damn it.
You got many options. So you got kill, you got stun. I think there's other stuff on that as well. So there's more for Picard.
Does it actually have kill and stun on that as well?
I like to think it does. I don't know. I've never seen a phaser up close.
Set to kill on this.
The thing is, if Star Trek was wrestling, though, it'd be Picard versus Kirk. That'd be the first thing they'd do.
Do you know what's just actually mad when you think about that? I've never thought about, right, phasers set to stun. I'm assuming they're always just set to kill.
They must be, right?
Yeah.
So you have to downgrade it to stun.
Yeah. All right, lads.
Because you don't want to start intergalactic warfare by killing the wrong alien.
And who made that as well? Where they were like, right, I've come up with this weapon. It's a phaser. It can kill, but I've also been able to turn it to stun as well.
It can go down 2. Do you want the option to go down 2? You do. Excellent. I'll just include it. It's a good point. Or was it he thought it was meant to stun, and he had a test subject and he shot it? That mother hubber's dead. Right. We
can't fix it because I've run out of money and funding. So we're just going to have to ship this with a stun and a kill.
Absolutely. We'll knock it off a bit, but the kill mode has to stay in there. All right, cool. It's a weird thing because I've only really watched Star Trek The Next Generation, but whatever the Starfleet, I thought their thing was to bring worlds together, and yet they're all stomping out there with murder weapons, like just in case.
Pretty much.
In case, guys.
Pretty much. I mean, Kirk, that's all Kirk really did, which was sleep with a bunch of aliens and beat the shit out of them at the same time.
I mean, that literally was the whole thing. Yeah. That's all he did. That's actually all he did.
You wonder whether or not they were aware that he was doing that, or they got like a sort of like intergalactic telegram at one point. They were like, did you know that Kirk's been... Do you know? We got this guy...
Yeah. I need to know, was it down on the treaty, not the treaty, but the mission statement, we want to mate with as many aliens as possible? Or did Kirk just go like, you know what, I'm out here, I'm a million miles away from home, just got to do it. I've gone through the crew.
There's 2 women on board, you know, no, not Riker. Riker's got half of them. Yeah, Scotty's got half of them. He's the ladies' man. But yeah, man, how to loop that back, I have absolutely no idea.
There's no way. We've totally ruined this podcast now by moving it. Also, we're now hitting up all the things that are going to get people mad. Yeah. Star Trek gets people mad. Yeah. Superheroes get people mad. Wrestling gets people mad.
I do think like people get so defensive over CM Punk, don't they? They get so he is one of the most sort of polarizing characters. I feel like a few years ago everyone was sort of on his side and he was like, you know, he was the guy. But I feel in more recent years maybe he's kind of turned into a bit more of a John Cena type, where people are looking at him being like, he's 40, why is he still, you know, headlining and in the final 2 of the Royal Rumble? What has he done to deserve that in the last like 5 years?
Well, I mean, that's just wrestling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the irony with CM Punk. Like, you go back to 2013, 12 potentially, and he's talking to The Rock, going, "You can't just come back here and take my Royal Rumble spot."
And here we go.
But that's what wrestling is all about. Wrestling for many years has been totally fueled by nostalgia. And ironically, like in 2023, I would say it's probably the year they steered away from that the most. And yet, in terms of WrestleManias, they had more Hall of Famers on the card than ever.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where the balance of wrestling... But I think that's the beauty of what it is, though, right? You can be 58 years old and come back and do something. Yeah. We all just sit down and go, well, what are you able to do? This. Okay, great. That's what we'll do. But that's what makes it so fun. I mean, Goldberg's last match, he was like 54.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's not the same Goldberg, but... Look, if he was an MMA fighter, ain't nobody, well, somebody would, but no commission should be signing off a 54-year-old after a 10-year layoff to get back in the ring with somebody in their prime. But I think that's why, you know, people always like to laugh about wrestling. Oh, it's so fake. I don't like the word fake, but we'll just use it for this conversation. But that's why it's great, because it is fake. So you can have a 65-year-old
You can do whatever the fuck you want,
Yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want, and you shouldn't knock it because of that. You should embrace it because of that, because you can, again, the classic thing, you can do Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali, right? We've done it many times. We did The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. We did, well, there's loads. There's no point going through them. We've done them time and time again. We just put random 2 people together, and it always creates some sort of a moment. So... No, I think Punk has always been polarizing, but I think that's how he lives his life too. I think that's why he's on the pedestal that he is.
Yeah.
But I do both in AEW and WWE, I do see him as a huge plus. Like, again, there was one point where he was the number one merch seller in AEW and WWE. Wow. Number one is just when he joined at Survivor Series, and you're like, that's not an accident. Yeah. You've cultivated some sort of a fan base that's really invested in what you do, and I think that's. I think it's great. I love it.
When you look back at the fights with Mickey Gall and Mike Jackson as well, you kind of briefly touched on it as well, but I assume that he took no damage to his reputation, to his brand after those fights.
I don't think so. In fact, as far as I know, within wrestling, I mean, some people in AEW took shots, right, as part of a promo battle. But the first time he ever referenced it himself was during his "I'm injured, I've got to go away" speech, because his whole point was, being the best in the world is not about winning all the time. I lose more than I win. Mm-hmm. Did you all see me in UFC? Not great.
Right.
As the first time I've seen him do that. But again, I think that speaks to his... I don't know if genius is the right word, but how smart he is about it. Because as soon as he said that, he made what is absolutely could be spun as a negative into this, like, again, all-encompassing rally cry.
Yeah.
That, we can all go down, but we got to pick ourselves back up. And you've torn your tricep, but you'll be back again, so on and so forth. So, no, I don't think it made a difference to wrestling fans. I think there's probably more MMA fans that watch wrestling than wrestling fans that watch MMA.
Yeah.
I think there is a large contingent of wrestling fans that are just wrestling. And that's great. I'm glad that you enjoy it so much, but that's why, he lost in UFC. I don't care. I watch wrestling.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, they just forget about it.